these players spawning down here in the bottom position. He is BYUN. As opponent, up here in the top, he is Solar. Now, these two players are cut from the same kind of cloth, I feel, because both of them are very strong in the online scene. I like BYUN has just been playing an absolute multitude of tournaments since coming back, and Solar just never stopped playing them. Whether it's $100 or 1,000, uh, these players can just be seen sporting their chops. And I mean, it must have done something really good for BYUN because he did win the BlizzCon finals back in 2016 because of all that practice that he got on the online cups. And you know, out of game too, both of these guys are just really nice, swell guys. Like, I remember back when I was starting casting, BYUN would always invite me to his games so that we could get some content for the channel. And Solar, just if you've ever been to his stream, he's always speaking in such clear English. It's really nice, and just really talking to players like he just talks to players like they're worthy adversaries, whether they're 100 or 1,000 RPM below him. Now, Solar, though, is going to be going ham in this game, as we see that he's going to be getting that third base up nice and early, just trying to keep that one base advantage. This is live, but these are cast from replay because these were not cast initially during the NA time zone, so we're just bringing it live to all of you guys here in NA land. BYUN actually just going to skip the Reaper as well. He really hasn't been utilizing the Reaper too much recently. Just kind of preferring to go for this this kind of fast Marine style, which just allows him to stay safe versus any kind of early aggression from the Zerg player. Now, behind this, we do have the Armory starting up, so that does tell me that we're going to be seeing some sort of Hellbat play. Actually, look at that. As I say, no Reaper. He adds on a Reaper. Oh, he's the son of a diplomat. That is actually really cool. So BYUN actually going to catch a couple of these scouting units here for Solar, and just going to be moving in here. No medevac required for this, as there's just no way that he feels like he can lose this fight. The Hellbats start to morph, and this is where it gets a little bit dicey here. Solar being forced back straight into the natural, kind of just abandoning his drone line, but right now BYUN being forced back. Yeah, so unfortunately just not able to get too much done with this, but really interesting strategy. I'm definitely going to be stealing this for my latter games. And I think everyone else should too as well, because behind it, he's also getting up to that third CC, so that allows him to just stay equal in terms of that economy, even though he didn't get to do a lot of damage. Now, keep in mind though, this is a big investment, so he still has to try and salvage it a little bit. So just going to go back into Hellion mode and try and dive in there, but not going to get in. Now behind this, Solar did get a scout around. He sees what's up in the base, but I don't believe he saw that medevac actually load up. So BYUN gonna go for a bit of a double prong here, getting forced back though, as there is plenty of units here for Solar to defend. I like that though. That was a pretty nice pickoff. Just forces a lot more energy out of the Queen, and it's really not good to be using that energy when you do want it for transfuses, especially when the big fight starts. Finding an angle though, here we go. The Hellions do have a bit of room to breathe as there are no banelings with this. Secondary attack going to be coming in as well. Has to be careful not to lose the medevac. But this is where a lot of the damage is coming, as 5 workers do go down, and now these Queens having to expend that energy on transfuse. And behind this, he also got a pretty good scout off, seeing that the Spire is the next choice. Now, I'm not saying that wasn't very expensive for him, but it did force a little bit more of a reaction out of Solar. Solar still only on 3 bases, by the way, so looks like he might just be saying to heck with it and going full on aggression. Once that Spire pops, it's going to be a lot more difficult for him to actually expand behind it. But looking at this, the Widowmine's trying to get some good connections. They not really able to clean up enough, so BYUN is going to be forced back once again. Now, Solar did have to expend a lot of larva for this, so his drone count only at 70. I think he wants to add on some more to this. Also just wants to keep that 4th alive. But now we see the kind of Mutalisk style come into play here. And the thing about this, it's very gas intensive. And it's also one of those ones where you do have to stay on lair tech a little bit longer, just because you need all the minerals and all the gas to make enough banelings and lings. Also, don't want to lose them to the Widowmines. That's a big thing right there. Yeah, so it's difficult to kind of find the minerals to go up to Hive. So you're stuck on this 2-2 upgrade and a big Mutaball. So now BYUN actually wants to get an attack. Really, he just wants to do so because he needs to start getting some pickoffs on those mutas. Don't let all of them get too big, but unfortunately he gets fully surrounded, so a huge Baneling connection right there. Just gonna clean up his army and force him on the retreat once again. That is definitely not the BYUN splits we know and love. Solar just getting some really good engagements there. And now he's been given so much room to breathe. So now able to go up to a Hive Tech a lot quicker just because he didn't take any damage and he wasn't having to rebuild any units. We're gonna have to see a +2. Like we are gonna see this little bit of a timing here for BYUN, where his +2 upgrades are finished. So he is gonna be equal on that upgrade for a time, but yeah, he's gonna have to utilize it soon, as his drops just continuously getting picked off here. Just not able to break Solar. HH is how you type it on a Korean keyboard. BYUN just really expending so many minerals on these attacks. It's really hard to say whether that's the right option here, because the way I'm seeing it, there's no splash damage. There's no way to really clean up those lings effectively. And he's really dividing his forces up, when in reality, Solar has enough to defend both locations. Just look at that. You've got enough there. Queen's pushing the creep out quite far. I mean, take a look at this. He essentially sees BYUN the second he moves out from his base. And now the Thor is actually in a bit of a problem situation here. The Bane is going to be able to clean everything up. And while there's still a little bit of bio over here, there's still the Mutas to contend with. Now Solar making a little bit of a misplay. They're going to be taking quite a few shots from those Thors, be unable to save them. And now a little bit of an overextension here, but really at this point, you do have the larva to just keep pumping out those lings as much as possible. Looks like the Widowmine is going to burrow up here on the creep, just to try and slow things down on that end. But still, I don't want to say it's over for BYUN, because he is still maxed out. His army size is still bigger than Solar's. That was actually a really good pull, because it killed off the medevac with that friendly fire. Excuse me. But again, BYUN just can't move out of his own base. He can't make it. Doesn't even really matter to Solar taking those hits, because there's no follow-up to it, so these Mutas still going to reign supreme in the sky. And is going to be rolling in, not fighting off of creep just yet, but again, he's just completely remaxing every single time he loses any units. Ultra is going to be coming up the top, but they're not really going to be too effective. It's going to be the Banelings, which are the linchpin of this, as they're just going to detonate right on top of this. Actually doesn't kill the planetary fortress. A little bit of a misstep by Solar. Sacrificed a lot there for only 8 workers. And now BYUN is able to kind of just push his way forward a little bit. My goodness, this game has everything. Just back and forth all over the place. Okay, he does have the Ultras upgrades. I just had to check. BYUN just pushing forward with most of his army on this side. The Muta's getting picked off one by one. Solar getting a little bit overextended here, I feel, although he does have quite a few banelings left with this force. He streams on Twitch. I don't know the exact channel, but I think it's solar_SC2. But now the creep pushed very far back, and behind that as well, BYUN just maxed out again and again. He's even adding in additional Widow Mines just so that he can keep the push going and kill off those links as quickly as possible. Solar getting pushing very far off of creep, but now that BYUN has room to micro, he is just going to pick off as many of those banelings as possible. Still quite a bit of bio left on the top side. He's just going to bring it down to reinforce. And now Solar is on the ropes, even though BYUN has a much smaller army supply. Actually, no, he still has a huge army supply. And it's just continuously pushing back, canceling the hatch again. Oh, I tried to post the link. Oh, man. Huge Widowmine connection right there. Just going to clean up a lot of those banelings. The Ultras still reigning a little bit supreme, but they're going to start to get picked off here. They need to retreat along with what's left of the Muta count. And really, this is not the best for sustainable army for Solar. Those Ultralisks, so expensive. And every time he loses them, it's going to be harder and harder to get them back. BYUN getting pushed back a little bit here because he doesn't have the full weight of his army, but now that he has it, it's going to come down to these Widowmine shots, and they are getting the connections that they need. Once again, Solar pushed back, and now this base is under fire. I feel like BYUN still being a little bit timid here because he worries about the remax for Solar. And I mean, that is something to be worried about, as once again, Solar is full on. Maxed out. Solar not going to stop the pushing. More and more banelings just get taken down by the Widowmines. They are literally the MVP of tonight. Now, BYUN, really, I think he can push on to the creep, but it's just so difficult to say because Solar just never really giving him an angle. Push back all the way to the planetary fortress, and that will go down. The banelings making short work of it. But there are no more banelings, so the Ultra is going to start getting cleaned up. No anti-air left, so the Mutas are going to be starting to finish things off. Actually, the Medevac's starting to run out of energy as well. I think Solar has finally started to do it. Currently up over 80 army supply. Yeah, this is kind of a last-ditch effort here for BYUN. Not really, he's not really producing too much. He's down to 40 workers. So his base is starting to mine out as well. Yeah, this army just gets oranger and oranger, and those purple bars just go lower and lower. See, the thing is, I keep expecting a transition here out of Solar, but he really doesn't have to at this point. Just going to push in once again. That is an overwhelming swarm of Zerg units. And the Vio is going to fight valiantly, but I think we're going to see the tap out here pretty darn soon. GG is called. Oh. Wrong button there. But seriously, that game was so back and forth. I really couldn't tell you who was ahead at any real point until like the last 5 or so minutes. It's just BYUN. He wasn't able to get that early damage, which is kind of his signature. And Solar just really taking advantage of the fact that his economy was untouched for most of the game. So now, we're going to have to see if BYUN can bounce back, as we do have quite a few more games left, potentially. Checking the right desk. Hopping. Well, that's the thing. The Hellbat push was pretty powerful. It still kind of is, but the thing is, without that healing power, without the ability to kind of keep it going like that, it's just not as good. But you know what? It doesn't matter, because this guy still has quite a few options in his repertoire. Spawning down here in the bottom position, he is BYUN. And up here in the top is our red Zerg player, Solar. Or if you're Artosis, Solar. Well, it used to be way back when the Hellbats were first introduced in the Heart of Swarm. Those Hellbat drops were just so powerful in pretty much every single matchup. I literally got from, I think, bronze to gold 3 with just a really bad version of it. And I mean, it took a lot of balance patches just to kind of fix it up to a level where it wasn't too overpowered, but you could still do it, and if it wasn't scouted, it would still be pretty powerful. But one thing I've seen from BYUN is he really has utilized that Hellion play in pretty much most of his matchups here. I haven't seen him do it versus Terran just yet, but that's just only because I haven't seen him play Terran in a little bit of time. Um, but we do see him going for one of his patented steals from Innovation, 2-1-1. Innovation may have created it, but BYUN has essentially perfected it. The thing is, this does need to be scouted for Solar if he has any hope of defending against it. Uh, I think the way to kind of quantify the defense is what you need is at least 5 queens and 15 to 20 lings, if not banelings or roaches. Um, Roaches, though, are not the best option because they just don't scale well into the later stages of the game. It's just really difficult to do too much with them. And now Solar did get a scout of a rough number of Marines at the top of the ramp, but still, that doesn't tell him everything. He really wants to get that information. And what's funny is at some point I do want to kind of switch to Solar's vision for just a second because if I recall, he does like to play with the Diva voice pack as his announcer. Actually just going to slow walk his units across the map. Solar did get a scout off of this. His Zerglings caught wind of everything, so he's just going to pump as many lings as possible. And already this is doing some really good work. 3 queens going down, a 4th going to follow, and Solar just caught completely off guard with this. The Lynx not able to clean this up. The drones starting to fall in droves here. And BYUN, he's going to pick up and get out of there, but he has forced a huge reaction out of Solar, and now Solar is going to have to go for a bit of a counterattack if he is going to get back into this game. But BYUN not going to stop the pushing just yet. He still has quite a few Marines, and he is ready to keep this rolling for as long as he possibly can. Baneling's going to help out, but unfortunately for Solar, BYUN can target fire Banelings like it's nobody's business. Just look at that focus fire here, and although he does have to pick up, that is still more damage than pretty much any of us on ladder can do with that few units. Now, actually going to be reinforcing this with a siege tank. But he does have to be careful back at home because he is about to get hugely bane busted. Actually leaving the siege tank at home. As he pushes on the creep, but here we go. The wall has fallen. Now this is actually going to force BYUN to come back home. But he is going to lose quite a few of his workers to that attack. 16 workers going down. And while he does clean that up, GG is called. Okay, so that was a completely different BYUN than we saw in that last game. Just from the standpoint of he was able to kind of play it a little bit more crisp, a little bit more clean than he's used to. Than I'm trying to type and speak at the same time, but it was a lot more crisp, a lot more clean, and he was able to really just put the damage in early. You know what, guys? When you're trying to put some damage on your knight, as in you are literally looking to keep yourself refreshed and entertained, let me introduce you to our sponsor, Fireball Whiskey. So they are great for a night out or just a night in. Whatever you decide to do, it creates a great atmosphere for any sort of occasion. Even if you're just sitting at home casting StarCraft, mixing it with a little bit of apple cider and warming it up makes a delicious apple cinnamon flavor. And you know what? It is just good for all sorts of things. So it burns like heaven, tastes like hell, and you can get it delivered straight to your door. Check them out at the link in the chat. And you know what? While you're checking that out, we are going to introduce these players spawning down here in the bottom position of Jagannatha. He is BYUN. And his opponent down here, up here in the top position, is Solar. Oh, did I get that? Did I get that mixed up? Oh, okay. It tastes like heaven and burns like hell. It is very late for me. I can't even say it's the fireball that made me say that, which is hilarious. But we do see BYUN going to be going for one of his oldest tricks in the book. He's got the 3 racks Reaper on the way, and he's going to be looking to punch Solar's teeth in. He really does use this strategy a lot on this map from what I've seen, and it's kind of interesting. Just because there's such a long distance to go for the Reapers to reinforce. Last time I saw him do it on this map, though, he did kind of stay on it a little bit longer than he should have. He should have transitioned out of it a little bit earlier. But, you know, this is BYUN we're talking about. Doesn't matter how many Reapers he has, he will find damage with it, even though he literally single-handedly nerfed the Terran race. Now, Solar has caught wind of this. He's seen the additional Reapers. Going to be popping out 8 additional links to kind of help him with it. But BYUN just being very cautious, very careful. Does not want to lose the first swarm of Reapers. Now, Solar doing a pretty good job on the defense so far, just adding in those additional queens. But already, this has slowed down and stunted his economy quite heavily. BYUN taking the lead in the worker supply. That is never supposed to happen. Like, ever in a TVZ. And now behind this, we do have that second CC coming on down. And he's just going to keep pumping out the Reapers, it looks like. I think Solar's had enough, however. He's just going to go straight over to BYUN's base. Uh, we'll have to see if he decides to get in there. And it looks like he's actually just going to split off some units, fearing that the Reapers are coming home. You know, what's funny is behind all of this, usually you are supposed to see him start pumping out the Marines and throwing down the tech lab just so that he can start stim and keep the aggression going. But BYUN been hanging out with Reapers a little bit longer. Only just now going to start the Marines. I would like to see... Okay. Just as soon as I thought he was done, he is not. But the big question is, how much more utility can he get out of them? You know, there is a healthy amount of links around. And just... I mean, really... I feel like this is not going to go well, but it's going to be very entertaining to watch. Okay. All right. I see you, BYUN. He's going to lift the Reapers straight into the main base and start healing them. Now, this actually has a little bit of potential because the Lings are a little bit out of position, but already going to get clearing up some of that. There's plenty of transfuse energy, so he can't really fight the Queens in those numbers. Actually is going to be able as well to just pick up and get out of there, saving all of those, saving the Reapers for a lot longer than I've ever seen a Reaper stay alive in a game. I'm interested to see the follow-up here because we do have Liberators on the production tab. So maybe if you just punch that onto the ramp right there, keep the Queens from being able to go up the ramp. Problem is, there's still so many Lings. Solar not paying attention, taking a hits right there. We're still alive. I think he actually just lost the Liberator as well. Indeed he has, so it's actually relatively even in terms of that units lost. You know what, BYUN is nowhere near done just yet. Gonna have to pick up and get out of there, but he's trying to pick off as much as he can. Or finally retreating. 9 workers going down. The Liberator actually just getting in undetected there. Now we can even get out with that. So great from BYUN. Just distracting in one location, then hitting the next, as well as getting a scout off on that Spire. Okay, so do you see the drop get cleaned up? BYUN falling really heavily behind in terms of that army and work supply. And I feel like he's kind of slowed down a little bit. Started out really strong, really aggressive, but now there's just so much room available to Solar. He's been pushing out his creep. He's been like just been Solar's just been everywhere on the map right now. He's got vision so that if BYUN moves out, he's gonna get scouted almost immediately. And I mean, BYUN doesn't seem like he actually wants to go out. Okay, so he does get a couple of Mutalisk pickoffs, which is nice. And he's going to try and get a cancel on this fourth. Solar actually just tend to just tank those shots, it looks like. Good focus fire on the Banelings. I gotta say, that is one of BYUN's huge points. He always kills off those Banelings no matter what. But once again, getting pushed off of creep. Solar has a little bit of a counterattack going at the fourth base. But the problem is, BYUN's not really attacking with a majority of his forces. He doesn't have that kind of pushing potential anymore, just because Solar's economy is completely out of control. Look at this, even gonna go straight for the third base and just force BYUN back into a bad position, as a lot of his units are taking the brunt of this Baneling aggression. I think we might be seeing the end here for BYUN. The Mutalisk even going to fight the Thor straight up, and that's going to be it. Solar goes straight up to match point. What? See, BYUN, his aggression is literally unmatched. But he's just giving Solar, who, by the way, is an aggressive Zerg himself, just so much room. But that doesn't mean that we aren't going to be moving on to this next game, guys. Because there is still everything to play for. And yeah, it's going to be on Death Aura. So I feel like I've seen BYUN, I feel like I've seen him win a majority of the games I've seen him play on this map. Uh, Probably a bit more solid for him in terms of having it figured out. But we'll have to see about that. Because we are loaded to game. Without further ado, spawning in the bottom position in the blue trunks is BYUN. And his opponent up here in the top, he is the red Solar. Now, I really doubt that either player will. I just kind of highly doubt that they'll be cheesy in this game. Solar has the most to lose if he does cheese. I think the risk just isn't really worth it. But you know what? That's beyond fair. He's actually going to just skip the Reaper first and go straight for the Marine. Trying to stay a little bit safer in that regard. Maybe throw down the Reaper afterward. No, he's just going to go straight for the factory. Not enough to actually build the reactor though, so that's going to slow things down a little bit. So BYUN actually going to be aggressive with his economy as well. Going to be going up to that 3cc. Has to be careful not to let this get scouted. When this is scouted, that kind of makes the Zerg player see red. Because he knows that you're not going to have too many units because you spent so much to get that up and running. No, behind this. It's actually making those Marines. Okay, he drops down the tech lab. I was starting to think that he could potentially go for another Hellbat timing, but no, not without the Marines. Gets the creep tumor, so that is a really nice pick off to start things. They only have enough energy for one left. Yeah, BYUN being very passive with these couple of units. Not going to dive on top of them, which he kind of, he really loves to dive in with Hellions versus Protoss, as I've noticed. But, no, Solar is not really overreacting this time. There's not a huge swell of lings. He has just enough to defend what he feels is enough. And he's just droning behind it. Already up to 58, he can go even higher, and even just add on the Baneling Nest as well. So he's super safe against anything that BYUN has to push for. Now, speaking of upgrades, they're relatively even. I think Solar just has a little bit more on them. Yeah, really standard game. Not too much else to say about it. This is where it gets dicey. Um, Basically, with this 2 medevac drop in BYUN's hands, you are going to lose Banelings. And you are going to lose a lot of Banelings. But here we go. BYUN actually having to just pick up and get out of there, but he is not done with it just yet. Keep in mind there's no Baneling speed, so as long as BYUN doesn't stay on the creep for too long, he's going to be able to really just push his way through a lot of different places. Yeah, Solar's defending pretty well right now. Not really taking too much damage and going straight up to that Spire tech as well. You know, I kind of like this, however, because he's trading pretty efficiently. He's making sure that that link count is smaller and smaller. And actually, this is more of just a distraction so that BYUN can push towards the north. Hellbats do get taken out, but they soak up a lot of those Baneling shots. And now, the 1-2 punch is in. 4 workers going down, and he does keep a majority of those Marines alive. Fight another day. Creep spread, it's still pretty far forward. Solar's doing a really good job of spreading that, but now BYUN has made sure that it's only in one location where it's far out. He's doing a really good job of just keeping that creep contained. Solar looking to do some light Zerg aggression. These mutas actually going to be able to get in here and do quite a bit of work, but BYUN in the front just going to jump on this Zerg army and clean it up before it can even morph. So some excellent pickups right there. Gonna keep BYUN moving forward. Now there is still a bit back here for Solar. He's definitely not dead, and this push won't kill him anytime soon. Actually, I really like this move as well. From Solar, just pick off the reinforcements. But actually, fighting this position, he's going to lose quite a few of those Lings. And the main army can actually just keep pushing with this. Doors on the way as well for the mutas. Nice, nice. Is going to do what they can while BYUN actually keep saying actually. I should turn half of what I say into a drinking game. But he's going to be able to get in here and really get some damage done. He's kept a lot of his units alive, and the splash. Actually, well, there's been a lot of the Banelings taken down by the Marauders. And even now, he's catching these run-bys with half of his army while also attacking on the left. So now Solar's going to have to fight on two fronts, and I don't know if he's going to be able to do so. Spreads are good. He's off of creep. The Baneling's soaking up on top of the Marauders, so he's going to lose a lot of gas. There is Solar. Still, BYUN can't attack with this small force. I feel like a lot of these units are just hanging out for nothing. Big counterattack coming down, so they're going to be rebuffed, but the creep spread is once again just pushing down the center of the map very far forward. Again, like, if BYUN consolidated his forces, I think these engagements would go a little bit better. The Banelings now getting some of the connections that they need, and they're going to clean up this side of the map, kind of forcing BYUN on this side to decide what he wants to do. He's going to have to do so soon. Looks like he's just going to get cleaned up, and that goes straight for the main base. And once again, the Banelings actually taking a lot of hits. They've been forced onto the Marauders. This rotation, though, is going to be nasty for Solar to deal with. He's already up on Hive. The Ultralisks are out. You know, there is 3 Marauders in production at any given time. So now BYUN getting pushed back in a multitude of locations. He still has a very scary army to contend with. He just has to make sure these splits are good, and they are. Bailey's not able to get the connections, and now the Ultras super squishy. They don't have the speed upgrade just yet. Meters are still flying around, but again, just a missile turret here, a missile turret there. They're really not in the numbers that they would need. And especially now that a couple of them are going to get picked off as well. That's really gas that you can't afford to lose as Solar, because you just need that gas for the Ultralisks and the Lings, and of course, obviously the Banes. The linchpin of this army is the Banelings. Once again, the Solar are going to be coming in. The reinforcements having to defend for their lives. Still some really big Baneling connections. Going to force BYUN to return. Mito's just now going to be able to clean that up. 13 workers going down. Now the planetary is under fire as well. Oh my goodness. BYUN taking so much damage here. He's really gonna have to push deep with this push in order to make it worth his while. Woodmines though gonna keep him solid and in good standing as he attempts to take this base. He did lose the planetary, the orbital over here. Just burned down. But at this point, he knows he has to push. He knows he can't really do too much else, and he needs to win this engagement and this game soon. Transfusion is going to be the only thing saving these Ultras from a gruesome death, but now they are starting to run low, and so is Solar's army. BYUN starting to take a pretty commanding army supply lead here. Able to easily pick off a lot of those Banelings, but now I can't even see them, that they're so far underneath the medevacs. It's all up to the mules. Currently only at 33 workers. So BYUN gonna push his way through here. I think he has finally cleaned it up. And I think Solar is gonna start to run out of gas in the tank as GG is called. So I was literally sitting there waiting for him to potentially lose it before I made the call, because I thought he was about to lose all his units, but just pulling one out of the bag. That does mean we are going to a game number 5. That up. I'm just really excited for this one. So, without further ado, let us introduce our players. Spawning down here in the bottom position, he is BYUN. His opponent, up here in the top, he is as bright as the sun, he is Solar. Yeah, the Mutas wanted to join the fight, and you could tell, but there was just so much, so much there for BYUN. The push really was. Excuse me 1 second. It was just overwhelming. We saw that Solar was trying to engage as well with the Lings, not fully consolidated. He lost a lot of Banelings to the Widow Mines, and also just lost a lot to not hitting the targets that he needed. He hit the Marauders more than the Marines, I feel, and that really just killed him in the last game. But he still has another chance right now, the last chance, as BYUN actually just going to once again skip the Reaper and go straight for the Marine so he can get up to that factory tech nice and quickly. Actually, yeah, there you have it. BYUN going to be going for the 2-1-1 once again. It's just his bread and butter. Whenever he's looking down in a series or whenever he's looking up in a series, this is just the best way to close it out. Now, there is one small caveat to this thing. If you lose the first batch of Marines early on without doing too much damage, then it becomes really hard to kind of it becomes really hard to kind of keep any sort of map presence out because the Lings will just be all over you the entire time you try and move. Now Solar isn't really in a position to scout this either, so he's gonna have to go off his intuition to know what's up. But he does need to start spreading that creep. Just try to keep that third base safe. Even though it's in a bit more of a pocket position, you just have to keep everything going full blast in order to defend. Yeah, the funny thing about this spawning pool is, especially with the mechanical Zerg skins, it just looks like I would seriously jump in there. That looks like a fun time. Just turn on the jets and do a little spawning. Maybe I'll grow wings like Kerrigan. So Solar already does have a lot of the moves that he needs for this one. What he has is he's got those double Evo chambers, so he's going to stay at... Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's going to... Those double Evo chambers are going to allow him to keep that upgrade lead and just keep it advantageous for him. He does have enough here to defend as well. I don't see the medevacs just yet. There they are. And even going to get a couple of pickoffs in the center of the map as well. Fact is, that creep is spread so far forward that it's difficult to really get in here as BYUN. But already he's trying his best, just kind of fighting his way back. One of the medevacs almost done. And the supply depot's going down as well. So now BYUN about halfway done with his +1. Combat Chills wasn't even complete for that. So that's one of the reasons he wasn't really able to be more effective with it. Good transfuses for Solar, though. He's going to make sure that he keeps every single one of these queens alive. And there's just so many of them. It's really hard for BYUN to get any kind of momentum out of this. He did force quite a few lings, so that's a lot less drones for Solar, but now Solar can just start pushing those in and really get this economy going. BYUN is nowhere near done. He's got to keep it going. That's the big thing about 2-1-1 is you're kind of stuck in this cycle of having to attack if you don't do damage until you get something done. You're trapped. Now he sieges up, but loses the siege tanks almost immediately, so Solar, while he does overextend off the creep a little bit with some of these banelings, is able to just really shut this down. And now this is the problem. The first push failed, so how is Terran gonna come back into it? Just taking a look at that unit's loss tab. It's a pretty small difference between the two. Solar's not gonna have, or BYUN is not gonna have the upgrades. We already have +2 halfway complete. Solar's just really in a amazing position for himself right now. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So now that the mutas are out as well, those siege tanks just lose any sort of effectiveness. Although we don't see any Thors in production yet. We don't see any Widow Mines. It's pretty much just pure Marine for right now until he can start pumping those out. And while he is getting some worker damage here and there, it's just super expensive. He's losing the medevacs, he's losing the units. And Solar just really playing this so well. Now, I do like that BYUN is kind of consolidating here to keep the attack going. And as I say that, he's just going for the drop once again. But now that Muta Ball is getting bigger and bigger, and every single time he comes in here, he's just going to lose the units again. These losses are just too expensive for him. Now Solar going to be looking to go for the killing blow, actually. Just a huge swell of red all over the place. BYUN does have 2 siege tanks in the back, but they're not getting the connections on the banelings that they need. And the wrap around from Solar is enough to clean up that siege line. SCV starting to get pulled to defend, but that is not going to be enough. As that last siege tank falls, the reinforcements go down, And that is gonna be it. GG.